Hello everybody and welcome to Tech Talk Thursday. We are live, we are back. We've been away for a few weeks, just turn the music down a little bit. We've been away for a few weeks, we've been doing some fun stuff, doing webinars and things like that, and we did try and go live last week, but my fault. Restream let me down. I let myself down with not setting these things properly, but that's what happens when you go live. So we should be live everywhere. We are live on YouTube, to LinkedIn. I'm also going live to my Substack channel. So if there's anybody there in the Substack world and wants to say hello, send me a comment and I can test those comments out as well. And we're actually going live to Kick as well because we can. It's a free account. Why not? So we might see some craziness on there. But let's see how things are going. Valerie's here. Hey, Valerie, welcome and thanks for joining us. But we have a special guest rejoining us this week. We have John Bellingham, who is the founder of Proven Flows, and he's basically just set up a new community. And we're going to be talking about him, about how he set up this community, why he set it up, what platforms he's using, and how you can get involved. But before we bring John on, here's my illustrious co-host, Martin McKenna. Martin, welcome. And you've been fighting traffic in Edinburgh today. How's it going?
Yeah, everybody's coming to Edinburgh. So this week it was AC/DC. They're here today. Last week, Oasis played 3 concerts. Iggy Pop was over in Glasgow. And top of the list, really, Diana Ross was over in Glasgow. And somebody called Valerie was on stage singing with her. So
yes,
I had no idea how Valerie got on in Glasgow, but you can tell us in the comments, Val. If you can even remember which date was Glasgow, and whether you saw any of it at all, because my messages to and from you, I don't think you knew which day was which, or which city was which. So, yeah, hope you had fun.
Jet lag, what a pain. Well, we have the wonderful John Bellingham joining us today. So, John, give us a thumbs up in the green room, and if you're ready, we'll bring you on. He's ready to go. John, welcome back to Tech Talk Thursday Creator Cafe. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you, Neil. Thanks for inviting me back. Nice to see you and Martin.
Good. Well, as I said, we had a little bit of a hiccup last week. We did sort of go live and we had a good chat about your new community. So we're going to do it all again. Just now we're live. But for people who don't know you, John, maybe you want to just introduce yourself, tell people a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so John Bellingham, I as you said, I run Proven Flows. I essentially help solopreneurs, service-based solopreneurs, to design, build, and launch an email-first business using Kit. Kit is one of the email marketing platforms that's out there on the market. Everybody's probably more familiar with the term or the name ConvertKit, and it changed to Kit last year. So yeah, that's kind of what I spend my time doing these days. I've got a background in software, but these days it's all about email and specifically all about Kit.
Yeah, there's a few people here at the moment who I see Saeed in the comments and Valerie. I think both of them use Kit or previously ConvertKit, as you said, for their emailing strategy. But you recently decided to set up your new community for helping people out, obviously, with Kit. So maybe we can start there. So what made you decide to set up a community? Because it is quite a big commitment, as we will talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, it's a commitment. It's something that I've been mulling around for a few years now. And I actually dabbled in it a couple of years ago, or maybe even 3 years ago, when I started something which I thought was a clever name at the time. I started something called the Thursday Email Club. And I kind of got a group of people together, and every Thursday we used to meet, and I would teach them things about Kit and email marketing. And then things just happened, and it kind of fizzled out. But it was, but at that time, I I guess I never invested enough time and effort into it. I didn't take it seriously enough because I didn't have the community aspect of it as such, because I was running it just on Zoom calls, and then any communication between anybody who was on the calls all happened inside LinkedIn, because that's where everybody was kind of based at the time. So I felt as if we didn't have that sort of cohesiveness that a community can bring. So anyway, fast forward to recently, I decided to take a more serious approach to it and actually invest time and effort into building a proper community with community-based software platform, and just start it with a small cohort of founder members that I can, over time build it up from what it is today to something that's much more helpful, much more functional for future members to join us. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. Got a small group of members in there, and my intention is to get feedback from the people in there to say what they want, what they need, specifically what they need help with, and then I can hopefully put that into the community so people can get value from it. With regards to what platform I chose to do that. Again, I went sort of long and hard thinking about which platform to go with, and all the usual suspects were there, like Circle, which I think is probably one of the bigger ones, Mighty Networks, Kajabi, Carter, all these platforms that offer similar things, and they have the community aspect to it. But then I came across one about 6 months ago called Fluent Community, which is developed by a company. I think they're based in Bangladesh, with a US site as well. And they've got a whole suite of software products. And all the talk at the time was how this product is going to compete with Circle, both on functionality and on price. So I kind of got involved. I became one of the beta testers, testing the beta versions that came out. And I liked what I saw. So I've kind of got on board with them. I've kind of added on a couple of other of their products to the platform to try and enhance it a little bit. And now today, pretty much everything is handled by that software product. So I guess that's a kind of summary of why I started it, where we are today, and the kind of platform that I use to host that.
And regarding the platform, because it's this specific platform where you don't buy something like Circle or Kajabi or all these other platforms, where you seem to get a lot of plugins and different things that you can do. It's like an all-encompassing price, I think, isn't it? When you buy something or invest in something like Circle and Kajabi. This sounds like it's more of a modular, so it's like a grow with you type of platform. So you don't have to have everything, all the bells and whistles to start with, especially if you're building a small community to kick it off. So is that true, where you can then just maybe buy additional products and plugins as you go along, instead of just sort of forking out a quite a large sum of money to start with before you build the community up?
Yeah, it does work that way. And obviously it's in their interest to make their other products dovetail very nicely with their community product. So of which it does, of course. But if you look at the other platforms in the market, like Circle and stuff, they kind of operate the same kind of model, but you need to, when you start, let's take Circle as an example. And I like Circle, by the way. I think Circle's a good product. I'm not dissing it in any way. But if you start with the basic subscription to Circle, you'll get the basic functions. But if you want to add on things, and I can't remember what the features are, but if you want to add on certain features, then the subscription model increases in line with the price as that increases as well. And the Fluent Community product platform that I chose has, I guess, distinct products that you can use outside of a community product. So, for example, they have one called Fluent Bookings, which manages calendar management, appointment bookings, all that kind of stuff. And that can be used as a standalone product. You don't need to have a community to use that, but it connects well with the Fluent Community product. And they've got other things like Fluent Cart, which kind of competes with WooCommerce or some of the other cart softwares. They have fluent affiliate. You can bake in affiliate schemes and stuff into your platform. So it's got a whole bunch of stuff, and obviously these things come with a price as well if you want to use them. But the other thing that appealed to me with this company or this platform was that if you get in early enough, which I managed to do, you get a lifetime deal. So I think the license I paid, I think I got something like 5 licenses, and it cost me something like $500, maybe more, maybe 600, but that kind of level. So when you can compare that as an investment over, let's say, I don't know, a 2 or 3 year period, it's significantly less than if you go for something like Circle. So they do offer lifetime deals on other products, which is another attraction for me. Because even though you might say to yourself, well, it's $100, $150 a month, it's when you start to, and you guys will know as well as I do, when you start to accumulate that 100, 150 and add it on to, whatever you're paying for Ecamm, whatever you're paying for Zoom, whatever, and it can mount up to a significant amount each month. So I personally, I'm always attracted to lifetime deals. So I know that once I've bought it, that's it. It's not an ongoing cost. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question about modularity, but that's kind of the way it works, that module.
Yeah, of course. Martin, over to you.
Yeah, I think rolling back just a few minutes there, it was interesting to hear that you were doing things on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, of course, you used to have group functionality. In fact, groups still do exist. But essentially, Microsoft came along, purchased LinkedIn, and then killed off all the functionality within groups in LinkedIn. So there was a point in groups where you could just drop out an email to everybody in the group, or drop out other messaging type communications, and then they just stopped it. They just said, right, it's getting too spammy, there's too many people trying to use group to promote themselves, so therefore we're removing all the functionality. And they don't seem to have got round to putting it back in again, but my guess would be if they do, it will be monetized, and it will probably be in a modular basis, and it will probably be more than what you have just mentioned. And I certainly know that comparison with Kajabi, they're charging you a couple of $100 a month. So
yeah,
your investment of $500 or $600 is nothing when compared with their platform, which it can of course do a gazillion things, but unless you want them all, it seems A, incredibly complex, and B, very expensive. So I think it's an interesting choice. I had been looking at Circle myself just out of interest, and one of the things that I think Circle does do is allow you to host live meetings similar to what we're doing at the moment. So I don't believe that exists in your current platform. So A, does it exist? B, how will you be hosting meetings if it doesn't?
So yeah, you're absolutely right, and it does not offer that feature at the moment. Whether they plan to bring that, I don't know. For me, it's not. It wasn't. That feature wasn't strong enough for me to make the decision to go to Circle just because of that. Even though it is a great feature, I'm actually a member of another community, and that is hosted on Circle. So I know what it feels like and what it looks like inside, even though it's a little bit strange to get used to, choosing the right microphone and camera and all that kind of stuff. But once you get used to it, it's like everything else, it becomes second nature. But that's the benefit of that, is that you can stream straight into your community rather than having to, go to Zoom or anything like that. Going back to LinkedIn, that was one of the big things that I think it's still, you guys will know better than me do. I think it's still not possible to stream into a group in LinkedIn. I know you can stream into, I guess.
Yeah.
No,
just a company page or your own page, but not for a group. No.
Because I remember when other people were, sorry, Neil, other people were running other LinkedIn groups, and that was one of their biggest complaints was, we want to have the ability to stream and share things privately into the group, and they found they couldn't do that. So
I think a lot of these companies are making it more.
Go
ahead, Martin. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, even to drop a an invite out to a group by section in the same way you email by section. You can't do that in LinkedIn at the moment, because that's exactly what you'd want to do. Just, hey, send an invite out to everybody in this group, and you can't. The only way you can send out invites is by location or by job role, or there's a couple of other things, but they're completely useless, really.
Yeah.
If you want to get a bunch of people or something from Sales Navigator in LinkedIn, where you've got a group of exact matches for what you want to do, you can't send them out an invite to a LinkedIn Live, which is ridiculous, really.
Yeah.
So they're missing a big trick.
Yeah, that was actually one of the challenges I had at the time when I was using LinkedIn. Also, was people joining the group and leaving the group. Was there was no way I could automate, or no way I could find to automate that process. I could automate because I had it connecting to Kit, and everybody who joined was becoming a subscriber on my email list, and I could tag them inside Kit to say they were an active member of the group. But if they left, I would then need to manually remove them from LinkedIn. I couldn't automate that step in the process, which is a bit of a fudge. It's not something I like, as manual processes.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think I was going to say that a lot of these free tools as well are making it more difficult for people, one, to go live, and two, to go live into these various groups and different communities. Facebook's putting restrictions on going live. Instagram now has upped the amount of followers you need even before to go live. But there's a couple of interesting comments. If I just can go back to our comments thing, let's have a look. So Saeed was saying that he's a user and a fan of Circle, and he can easily join multiple communities, so he can switch between them. So he said it's like something like a community hub. I don't know whether that's available in the software you've chosen, but I guess for you as a person who's actually creating the content and creating the community, that's probably not a concern of yours. Keeping everybody obviously in your community is the main thing, but I think it's just the fact that Circle has that ability to just switch between tabs, if you like, and have multiple communities.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with Saeed. It's a nice feature, and I've actually got it myself, because when I log into the community, I think I've got 3 or 4 down the left hand side that's different communities. And to be honest, it's not just Circle that offer that. School, I'm also in a number of communities in school. The SKOOL school one,
Yeah.
the Hormozy one. And they've got exactly the same type of thing. You can click on the top and it drops down to show you all the communities that you're part of. So it's a nice feature. But like you say, as a community host, that's not necessarily a constraint that I feel negatively impacted by. I'm just trying to serve my members as best I can.
Right.
So I guess maybe sorry.
No, I was going to say right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess as a member of the community, maybe it would be an inconvenience or a disadvantage. And I guess these platforms, the other thing you need to consider is these platforms like Circle and stuff are much more popular and much more widespread than the one I'm using. So by virtue of that, people are much more likely to be members of other Circle communities or other school communities than they are of, for example, Fluent community.
Right. And going back to your point around sort of streaming, Saeed also mentions that he's the members of the communities that he's a member of, none of them have really ever used a streaming feature. I've had a couple of questions from people who have been in Mighty Networks and wanted to know how to use OBS or Ecamm as the sort of platform into those communities. Obviously, you can use virtual cam and things like that, but it's interesting that maybe some of the communities that Saeed is in, it's either via text or some other means of communication, posts and things like that, and not necessarily people wanting to go live and communicate. Maybe they do it in a workshop, in a closed group, in Zoom and things like that. So I guess from my perspective, not creating a community at the moment, I'm just wondering what the advantages are of having, like, hosting your community calls in Zoom versus in-house or in the actual platform itself. I don't know whether you have any thoughts on that or considerations about what you want to do in the future with that, John.
So you hit on a salient point, because today if I had any hair, I'd been pulling it out, because I was struggling to try and I was struggling to try and use Ecamm Live to do I actually tried to do a live stream into YouTube, and it just went terribly wrong. I ended up talking to myself and commenting to myself. I'm not quite sure yet if I was actually live or not. But you know, my intention for my community is to invite people to Zoom calls with a private link, but using Ecamm Live. Because when you guys like this call at the moment that we're on, it looks marvelous. You know, it just flows like a professional show should flow, and that's what I would like to achieve. So, you know, maybe you guys can give me some pointers on the best place to start with that kind of thing, because that's kind of what I'm aiming for my community.
I'll let Martin start with that, I guess. His sort of top tips from a design perspective, at least.
I think, well, from a perspective of what you want to do, because I've already been on one of your kickoffs, I think that what would be nice is to have a gallery of people on the one page, but on your branded page, and then maybe use the Zoom active speaker feature, which will just bring whoever speaks into a larger box. So you'll have everybody on the gallery, but all on one screen, so that you're not doing this thing where you're sort of looking up or down. In the case of Teams, it's down. In the case of Zoom, it tends to be up at the gallery. But everything is full screen. But people then actually feel that they're part of the presentation, part of the community, because they're all on the screen with you.
Yeah.
And you can invite them one at a time to just say, hey, just unmute yourself. And there is a bit of call management to do there, because you do need to ask them to mute and unmute. You can do it for them, strictly speaking, but it's much nicer if they just do it themselves. So Neil, unmute yourself, and then they'll jump into the big centre area. Now, you don't have to have them on screen actually to do that, but my feeling is it just looks nicer when everybody is on screen, but in a different format from a standard Zoom call.
Yes.
So it's very easy to do that for up to 10 people, which is kind of around about the number that you're dealing with most of the time.
Yeah.
You can swap people in and out as well, but something like Neil's just done there with the 8 of us sitting on the screen.
Yeah, that was good.
You could have something like that, but a larger position in the centre where whoever's speaking, and that can be you as well, is speaking for a bit, and then you disappear off in a nice transition as well to one of the smaller squares or circles or whatever you want.
Yeah.
But we can help you out with a couple of quick scene builds for you to play about with. And then what you do is you start off your Zoom call, just like any other Zoom call, within Ecamm. And then within Ecamm, when people start joining your call, what you do is you assign them to a placeholder. So you add them to a call.
Yeah, okay.
They will be asked to give their permission for, as they always do, for cameras and voice, etc. So you add them onto the scene just by clicking the word add, and then you can get it to automatically assign them to placeholders as they arrive, or you can assign them to placeholder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through to 10.
Right.
And then that'll be them. They're on the screen, and even you can have the ability to have people who are not appearing on the screen still jump into the active speaker as well. If they're the only person speaking on the call at that time, then they'll jump onto the screen, providing they've been added into your production.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a stepped workflow, but once you've done it literally once or twice, you'll suddenly go, oh, actually this is really easy. All I need to do is either auto admit everybody, which is probably the simplest thing to do when starting, so they get auto admitted, they get auto added to the scenes, and it's then just about where you've got your placeholders set. So if, let's say, you've got 4 people on to start with, and then a couple of minutes later you notice that there's probably 6 or 7 people in, then you can just flick to another scene which has got more people in.
Okay.
Which is typical of a flow for something like this, is people will join a minute late or 2 minutes or 10 minutes, so you can just scale up, and if people start to leave for any reason, you've been on too long, you can scale back down again.
Okay.
but it's very easy to do actually.
So I guess you would affect, if I'm understanding you correctly, you would have different scenes set up, maybe for 10 people, for 8 people, for 5 people, something like that. Yeah, is that?
Yeah.
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 So you can
Just flick through them.
address that in multiple different ways. So I tend to run with a run of show, which is you have your scenes in order, and I just go next scene, next scene, next scene. Neil, on the other hand, tends to use a stream deck. So Neil, you can tell John how that works. Have you got a stream deck, John?
No, I don't, but I've been using the Elgato Stream Deck on my phone, like the app.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been using that.
I don't have one. I have unfortunately 3 and a pedal because I love buttons. That's the problem. So I'll just switch this overhead camera. I haven't got a placeholder set up here for Martin, but let me just pop that in real quick. So for example, I mean,
put John in that one.
I'll put John in that one.
So
Yeah.
he can ask you the question.
That's a good point. Okay, so for example, I mean, I've got this Stream Deck here. At the moment, it's only got a few sort of buttons assigned, but I've got this one to my left. So this is like my mute and the sort of the main sort of controls, and then there's another one which I can't pull over, but it's here on the right hand side. So I just basically have all my scenes, as Martin said, set up as these different buttons on my Stream Deck. So I know if I want to go to active speaker, which is what we were talking about before. So active speaker in Zoom is basically, at this moment in this particular configuration, Martin and I are configured not to be in that larger box where you are, and you are the only Zoom participant on this call. But anybody would speak if there's 20 people on this Zoom call and I hadn't added anybody to a placeholder or a camera, then somebody could join the Zoom call now and they would speak and they would take over the placeholder where you are as them coming into that camera. So there's lots of different sort of things you can do, and it all depends on how comfortable you are in running the show. I personally just like having things set up in different profiles on Ecamm. So every profile in Ecamm is basically a show. So if I'm doing my YouTube tutorials, for example, I'll have a completely different look and feel to this. There's no sort of nice bells and whistles. It's just full screen stuff. And when I do switch to that profile, my Stream Deck, because I've got it set up, automatically switches to its profile, because Stream Decks have different profiles as well. So it's just really mapping the look and feel of your show to the Stream Deck buttons, and that's how I typically run the show. Sometimes I get in a bit of a muddle, as you can appreciate, because there's a lot going on. But Martin's approach is really good, because if you're running a webinar like we've been doing over the last sort of few months, that is just a run of show, and every scene switches. And yes, sometimes we might have to flip back when Martin can just click on the mouse button. But I think, Martin, from your perspective, it's much easier to navigate through the presentation, if you like, because all you're doing is switching scenes each time. You don't really have to think, because as a producer, you've got comments, you've got other people coming in, admitting people on Zoom. There's a lot to sort of do if you're a one-person production house, right?
Yeah, so I also have multiple Stream Decks, but I tend not to use them. Instead, what I use is this, which is just a 10 or 15 pound clicker, and that allows me to go forward a scene or backwards a scene in Ecamm the same way as you go forward a slide or backwards a slide in PowerPoint or Keynote.
So what is that connecting to, Martin?
This is just, all you do is, providing Ecamm is the fourth or the main application that you're running, this will go backwards and forwards a scene in Ecamm automatically.
Okay.
Now,
that'd be quite cool.
99% of the people in the world don't know that you can do that. I don't know whether I found that out accidentally or not, but it suddenly was like, oh, I can just sit here, press this button, and I'll go forward or backwards a scene whenever I want to. It just feels far more natural and almost like I'm standing up and presenting, rather than looking down for the buttons, which I know a lot of people love. And there's a guy called Alec Johnson. He has a sort of Rick Wakeman-like setup of Stream Deck in front of him. Everything you can think of, he's got set up on a button. And the nice thing about the Stream Deck is the buttons do have a little icon on them, which you can configure, so you can get it to be your little cartoon icons, for instance, for one person, 2 people, 3 people, and they'll show up nicely on the Stream Deck. I don't have that luxury by just using a clicker, and I don't know how the I've never actually tried using the mobile version of the Stream Deck, so I'm interested to know how that connects, because I do have a couple of other Elgato things for controlling lights, and they're just connecting via Bluetooth from the phone. And I do find that every now and again it just disconnects, and I'm sitting there going, turn the light on or off, and nothing's happening. So it is, when you're using the app on the phone, are you connecting via Bluetooth? Is that right, Neil?
It's Wi-Fi.
It's Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
Wi-Fi,
it uses Wi-Fi. So in Stream Deck application, it just presents itself as a Stream Deck physical device. So it's really easy to navigate. And Stream Deck have also introduced these virtual Stream Deck buttons, John, which means that on your desktop, if you ever wanted that, you could have a Stream Deck on your desktop that basically looks like, it just looks like a Stream Deck, and you can have multiple buttons on there. So if you were running out of, physical Stream Decks, if you did want to have mute or a few other key navigation type buttons associated on your desktop as a virtual Stream Deck, then that's one other option. But the mobile app is really good because you can get 6 free buttons for free to start with, and then if you pay for the mobile Elgato app, you can get as many as you want, and I think it's like $30 a year or something like that, or it might be one-off payment. I can't remember. But a couple of comments coming into what you've just been talking about, gentlemen. So let me just go back here.
Yeah. So what the comments are coming in then, Neil?
Go ahead.
One of the other things you can do, John, as well, because you can have multiple actions with Stream Decks. And I'm thinking Neil's probably got this already, but for instance, you can have a whole bunch of things that you have configured to start your show off, to mute people, to do various other things, and you can do that. And I think that's a great use of number one Stream Deck button, start show, and have a bunch of things in there that you may forget to do normally, but they're all pre-programmed into your Stream Deck, and the same for closing it out as well.
Yeah. That's exactly what I do to Martin's point. So Stream Deck buttons also have something called multi-actions. So one Stream Deck button can do multiple things. So when I started the show before, in my Stream Deck configuration, I had, it's called Live. So it does a number of things. It first of all goes to the main scene, which is like my intro scene. Then it starts the music for me on my Rodecaster. It mutes me and mutes you as Zoom guests. And then it has a timer on it. A delay timer. You can set this to whatever you want, and then after that delay timer has expired, it then can go to the next scene in the list. So let's say I set it for 10 seconds, so I get everything ready, then it'll automatically go to the next scene and so on. So you can get it to do all kinds of funky stuff, and that, as to Martin's point, it's really easy because once you've programmed everything in, and you obviously test it beforehand, then I just press the button. Same for the end. So when we finish the session today, I'll hit this end key on here, and it'll go to the end screen. It'll wait for a while. It'll go to another splash screen, and then it'll end the show. It'll actually stop the live stream for me. And all these actions, as they're called, they're basically called plugins, and many programs, OBS, Ecamm, Meld Studio, even Camo now, have these plugins, these actions that do something in their software based on the Stream Deck button. So you don't have to keep things up and running and stuff. You don't have to bring your application front and center. When you've got a plugin set up, it does all the work for you. So it's a pretty good way of setting things up. And again, it all depends on how comfortable you are with things. I don't like having everything to think about. There's a lot to think about. So sometimes I'll just program these buttons in to do multi things for me, which is super handy.
It's a workflow, John. You'll manage.
Yes.
Yeah. I definitely need something like that because I even set up the command 1, command 2, command 3 for the different scenes, thinking I'll use the keystrokes, the keyboard, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But what I discovered was if the focus came off of, so if I was doing like a screen share, and I'm like command 2 to go back to the screen, and then it doesn't go back. And I actually got caught out with that yesterday. I was actually recording some content for the community. And I was doing I think it was like a 30-minute video. In the last 12 or 13 minutes, I was demonstrating a screen share, But when I looked at the recording, it was just me looking at the camera. I hadn't hit the button right or something like that, so I had to go back and re-record it again. So,
And that's the beauty of Stream Deck. Even if you do a screen share or you come out of the active application, in this case Ecamm, it doesn't matter because it's programmed in and it doesn't rely on having Ecamm as the main front and center app active at the time.
okay.
So you can be screen sharing away and doing stuff. That's similar to what I'm doing here and things.
That's good. Yeah.
So Valerie was saying, just to your point, Martin, the way to do the hangouts and groups and things is just to lay it out in Ecamm, and that's how she does it for her particular sessions as well, which is just a neat way of doing it. And Saeed basically commented on that, saying, don't start your Zoom calls like any other Zoom call. That's the main thing. You just want to have something different. And am I sharing my screen? Can everybody hear me? You don't want all those questions coming up. We should be T-shirts, I think. Everybody should have those T-shirts now. Back in the day, like Frankie says, relax.
So am I just on that point, Neil? I've recently upgraded to the Ecamm Pro so I could get the Zoom functionality.
Right.
Does that mean that I can now set up a Zoom call within Ecamm, or do I still need to set up in Zoom and go back? Or?
You can set it up in Ecamm. You can set it up regularly. So if you sent, like today, I sent a Zoom event to you both from Gmail. But because my Zoom account is linked with Ecamm, in my Ecamm Zoom panel, I see now all my scheduled meetings. So I just start the meeting from there. I can start a new meeting from there. I can schedule. So you can do quite a lot with that. And the integration is really good. As you can see, it's pretty easy for us to sort of come in. And everybody's familiar with Zoom, which is interesting. So it's a no-brainer for people who want to just join.
We should also make one other point, actually, about Zoom, John, because this is something that people will trip up on. And that is about the quality of image on Zoom and quality of screen sharing. By default, if you've got a free Zoom account, you're going to get a pretty low quality. It's like 360p or something. You can get that up to 720 by having a paid-for account, but you may have to ask Zoom to enable the 720p. Both myself and Neil have got pro accounts or business accounts which give us 1080p. So just watch out for that. If you've got a free account, it's going to be rubbish. So you need to have a paid account.
I actually checked that last week, and I've got 1080p. I don't know what plan I've got, but I've got the little 1080p was a switch that switched on, so Fantastic. I've got that. So
you must have a business account, and it's really good because the quality of these interviews, as you see now, you're all on Zoom and you'll all look really, really good quality. And if I switch to a share, which is just this screen here, I don't know how this is a very, very large screen and a small thing, but if it's readable to you on Zoom, then it should be reasonable. So that's basically how you're going to get the better quality, and having that 1080p is really good. So that's good. More comments coming in. I can't keep up. So Valerie was also said, as you mentioned, you have to make sure that you're muted unless the people are speaking because of the active speaker. So the thing with the Zoom integration with Ecamm as well, I know we're talking sort of communities and all kinds of stuff, is that it's a global setting. So if I mute the Zoom guests in my Ecamm panel now, doesn't matter who's talking, the audience in the live stream won't hear them, but everybody else in Zoom will. So that's the other thing to remember. It's just a bit of it's an Ecamm instance of Zoom running inside of Ecamm, to give you an idea of how that works. So there's a few things you've just got to be mindful of, but there's lots of Stream Deck buttons as well for Ecamm for Zoom and Zoom. So you can mute everybody with a touch of a button. You can ask people to unmute. So you can really sort of get sort of grips with controlling how these workshops work. And when we run the webinars, I think, Martin, from your perspective, I think everybody's pretty mindful of just muting anyway. Only the guests that we have on the show unmute themselves, and everybody else pretty much stays muted. But you still have the same Zoom panel, the same Zoom window, the same Zoom controls. It just looks like Zoom. It's just that it's working inside of Ecamm. That's all.
Yeah, and I think the other nice things you're going to have as well, John, is the chat element. So people who are not on the screen, you can bring up anything that they put into the Zoom chat, but in a very nice way. As Neil has just done for the comments coming in,
Yeah.
it just looks 10 times better than reading out from the chat what somebody has said, which is what
Yeah.
normally people are doing. You're bringing it on the screen, and potentially on the screen amongst a whole bunch of guests as well, for discussion. Here's a comment from Valerie, and there you go, it's up on the screen. And back to your recording issue, I would definitely recommend for any recording that you just create a run of show. So you have opening scene, John solo, John sharing his screen, John closing the scene, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So those half a dozen scenes, and just run through them sequentially. And that way you'll never get this, oh, I'm having to press command 1, command 2, whatever.
Yeah.
You just click the button on your clicker and you'll go through to the next scene. The only thing you need to be careful about with the clicker is that if you are screen sharing, if that application becomes, if you go to that application and start pointing at things with your mouse in that application, that will then become the foremost application. So you need to come back into Ecamm and click for the clicker to keep going.
Yeah, okay.
So from that perspective, you could just create, a couple of buttons which are down in the bottom right of the keyboard to go forward and back a scene or something like that. And you do need to fit the other thing to those command keys. You need to be really careful because there's a lot of them that are pre-allocated. So you'll think, oh, I've done shift command something B, and that will have been allocated to something pre-allocated. So you do need to be a bit careful about that. I very rarely use keyboard shortcuts, actually, for that reason.
That's a good point, yeah.
I'm the same. I don't use keyboard shortcuts at all. It's just all Stream Deck. So Valerie, I had a question for you, Martin. How do you deal with people coming in with AI note platforms and note takers coming into the meeting? There seems to be more AI note takers these days than there are Zoom participants.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I did note that from John's kickoff the other week there, it was the first time I'd been on a meeting for ages where there were no AI note takers. So it was all real people, which is a credit to John to have real people in the meeting. But the AI note takers, it's kind of difficult. People want to put them in there and you don't really get much of an option other than to let them in. One thing I would be careful of doing as well is kicking them out after you've finished the meeting. So for instance, we'll finish this meeting and then hang out in the green room, if you want to call that. So we'll close down the meeting for everybody else, but myself, Neil and John will probably continue to have a chat in Zoom. You need to be careful because the AI note takers won't leave the meeting voluntarily. They will just stay in it until the meeting is closed. So you have to manually kick out note takers if you're going to have an off-screen chat afterwards, or indeed before. You need to watch out for auto-admitting. So if you set on auto-admit, then you run the danger of an AI note taker popping in before you want them to on your meeting and listening in on what you're saying prior to going live on the meeting. So just, watch out for AI note takers.
So,
They're there for normal purposes, but you could trip up.
I'm not a big fan of AI note taking coming into meetings, if I'm honest. I've never used them inside a Zoom call, and I'm minded to just not admit them. Do you think that's a bad thing or a good thing, or what do you reckon?
It's a difficult call, really, because the reason I'm saying it's a difficult call is purely because, in particular for us, we're doing shows, and it could be morning, evening, lunchtime, nighttime, whatever. And it may be a genuine reason that somebody said, right, I'd love to attend that meeting, but actually for me it's 3 o'clock in the morning, so I'll send my note taker. So, that is a valid reason for sending the note taker in. I suppose they can just watch the replay, but for some people,
So the other thing that Zoom offers, as you know, is the AI companion. You can get a summary of the call from Zoom itself, which I share that with my customers. So if I've got a one-to-one customer, I always share the replay and then I'll share the AI summary as well, so that they've got that as well if they need it.
I think
I think it's one to be played about with, but they're not going away.
Yeah.
I think it all depends on. Sometimes people just have these AI note takers just for the sake of it, and if people are joining with in my meetings, I will typically ask them, "Is this your AI note taker? Is there a reason why it's here? Do we need to have this?" And then we can just remove them. And you can remove them from Zoom anyway. You can just kick them out, as it were. At the moment, Zoom doesn't seem to have a. It would be nice if they had a policy where if it detected it's an AI note taker, then there's almost like another setting where it says "Do not admit AI note takers into the meeting," because it's a pain. But you're right, Zoom has its own AI note taker. And at the end of the day, if it's like a business meeting and so on, then let Zoom do all the work, and it'll send out the notes to all the participants later with actions and so on and things. Valerie has an interesting comment about AI note takers. She says that the AI note takers feel like somebody peeping through the window. They are the peeping Tom of today's technology, aren't they? Let's be honest. Interesting.
Peepingtom.ai.
But there's so many note takers because I think you were saying, Martin, on the last show that, sometimes we have these other calls with other groups and people's note takers turns up, but they don't turn up, right? So it's like, oh, you couldn't be bothered to turn up, but your note taker's here, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, I think some of them, once you sign up for a note taker, like I think I've got Otter AI, I use it for other things, but Otter now continuously wants me to sync my calendars up with Otter, and then they will appear in every one of my meetings. And I don't want millions of note-taking meetings. There's loads of meetings that I have that I'm no interested in having a file and to go and have a look at a list of files for just day-to-day meetings, but it wants to come in on every meeting. So I have it just turned off completely. It will only appear if I specifically ask it to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
But,
interesting.
Yeah, I can understand how some people have just got it on, yes, attend all my meetings, and therefore it does.
So I was going to ask you, John, just about, so you mentioned at the beginning of your discussion around your new community is that you've, at the moment, locked the invites right now, or the sign-ups, to keep it to a small core group of co-founders. And can you just explain a little bit about what the reasoning was behind that? Because I know you've mentioned that you want to sort of shape the community based on what the people are asking for, but I think that's a really nice way of doing it. Because when you build a community, I guess you had some vision, you had some ideas around what you wanted to include in your community and some of the topics and sort of talking points. So how did you, what made you sort of come to that decision around sort of letting the community drive the community, as it were?
Yeah, that's a good question. And if I'm totally honest, it was only because I was told to do that by, if I go back a few months, I was in the process of creating all sorts of content, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to have this course, and it's going to be great, everybody's going to have exactly what they need. And then I stumbled across a community coach. So this guy has been building communities for over 20 years. He's well respected in the industry. So I engaged with him for his help, and I said to him, tell me, how to start and grow a successful community. And his advice to me when he saw what I was doing, he says, you're going to scare everyone off. People are going to join, they're going to leave, they're going to be overwhelmed, they're going to get nothing from it, and you're going to end up with an empty vessel. So as hard as it was to hear, and as difficult as it was to accept, I took his advice, and I basically removed everything most things that I had in the community, and used his best practices, so to speak, to start and grow the community. One of which was start with a very, very tiny group. He suggested between 10 and 20 people. Learn from them. If you've got a good group of people, which I believe I have, I've got highly effective, successful people in the group with decades and decades of experience collectively. If you can start your membership or your community with people like that, then they will drive what you should have in the community. It's not about you, because as much as I can sit and think I know exactly what you need and what you want, if I'm honest, I don't actually know what people want until they tell me, and that's kind of ringing true in some regards already, just with having been live for only 2 or 3 weeks. I'm already getting requests from people to have certain things in the community that I hadn't, perhaps necessarily thought of. But I'm delighted that they're asking, and I'm more than happy to put it in there. So I think over time, what I want to do is reach, in my mind, what I'm striving for is the start line. When I get to the start line, it will be when the founding members tell me, yeah, there's value in this community. I'm getting value from it. When I need help in certain areas, I can find it in the community. It's not a chore. It's not something I need to do every day, but it becomes a resource that I can tap into whenever I want it. And that's kind of what I want to build. So I guess that's my objective. And it's a long-winded answer to your question, Neil, about why did I start with a small group. But that's the kind of logic behind it, and that's why I've done it that way.
Oops, I was on mute. So can people actually just sign up to the waitlist now? So if they go to the link, which I can post in the chat in a second, they can actually register to join the community as and when, and then when you open it again, they'll get notified and when that sort of is starting, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So people have already joined the waiting list. The waiting list is growing as we speak. So when the doors do open again, it'll just be everybody on the wait list will get an invitation, and probably the next time it will just be a small cohort again. Maybe another 20 people or something, just to bring them in and then repeat the process. I'd much rather do it that way, slow and effective, rather than just bringing in a ton of people. And grow into something that becomes less personal than I want it to be. I want to know everybody in the community. I want to know what their challenges are, and I want to know how I can best serve them, best help them. So that's my kind of approach to it.
So I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask you this question. So if there's people out there that are actually thinking about starting a community, what sort of 3 things or 3 pieces of advice would you give somebody in terms of consideration before they would press the button on creating their own community?
Be convinced that you're in it for the long haul, because it's not a short-term thing. So, if you're not sure whether you're in it for the long haul or not, then I would recommend not doing it at the moment. Wait until you're 100% certain that you definitely want to do it. 2, have a sense of it's not going to be necessarily as simple or as easy as you might think it is. It does take a lot of effort, especially in the start. I think as time progresses, and this goes back to what I've been told by people who know a lot more about it than I do. It's a bit like the metaphor that was used was a bit like the aircraft taking off on the runway. All the efforts required at the start, and once you're up and you're kind of cruising, then it becomes more of a continually adding value rather than all the kind of startup effort that comes with it. So definitely, have an acknowledgement of the effort that's going to be required for it. And I guess the third thing I would say is get a platform that you're 100% comfortable with, comfortable using, comfortable investing in, whatever that is for you. I'm not suggesting one is better than the other. I'm just suggesting you should get one that's definitely right for you. Make your life easy and not difficult. So that's kind of I guess what I would tell most people if they're thinking about starting a community.
I think it is really important to have a platform that you are comfortable with, though, because you don't want to be spending weeks and weeks and weeks just trying to navigate through how do I even set this community up, because if it just takes all the fun out of it, right? So you really want to, and I know there is a little bit of a learning curve to every software, but you want to have something that's pretty intuitive, something that's up and running. And I think, as you said, people have just got to go through and look at the different platforms that are out there. I think a lot of these platforms give you free trials and so on. I mean, there's communities anywhere. I mean, people can start, people have big communities just on Facebook, for example. They can just build a Facebook group, but it is a community. That's the whole point of it there as well. And it just depends on what type of features you want to have in that particular community and so on. And I think the one that you have chosen looks really nice. It's really well laid out. It looks very intuitive. It's not full of sort of different menus. I've joined various Discord communities and things like that in the past, and they can be a little bit overwhelming because you're not quite sure what that particular channel in that Discord community is for. Should I post here? What does this mean? It can be a little bit overwhelming. So I think it's important to find the right the right platform for you.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. That's why I'm saying get something that you're comfortable with, not other people. And like you said, most of these platforms offer a free trial anyway. So, just have a try at a few of them and see what sits well with you.
Well, Valerie likes the advice. Absolutely. I think it is great advice. Martin, I know you've spoken about communities. You mentioned you've been looking at some Circle and so on in the past. Is that something you will or are thinking about considering in the future? And if so, what would be your driving sort of factor towards creating a community?
Well, I think for me, it would definitely be surrounding the sort of functionality that we've got here. So for me, I guess if we had any community going on, a lot of it would be down to discussion like we're having here, and also quite a lot of screen sharing. So any tool that I was using, I'd want to be able to do that and to be able to record the sessions and have them freely available in an indexed manner within the community. So I don't see that in most of the communities because they're not really geared around sharing lots of video content. So I think it's a very good question because really that would be where I'd want to come from. I'd say, okay, we did this and we demonstrated Canva this week. So if you look under the Canva button, there's 10 Canva, much like you would do on YouTube when you group things together. But I want that to be within my community. Because that's what it would all be about. It would be sharing video-based information, and I don't think any of them will let you group and search for things in that way, unless you could tell me something different, John, because
I actually,
much broader knowledge.
yeah, you can to quite a good degree. You can do that because you can apply tags to everything. To every asset you create, you can apply a tag to it. So in your Canva example, you could create a Canva tag or category, for want of a better phrase, and any asset you create that has reference to Canva, you can apply that tag, and then when you do a search, it will bring back everything that's got that tag associated to it. So you can do that kind of level of searching. Most of these platforms, in my experience at least, are based on the concept of having what's known as spaces, and having discussion groups and having links, and having courses. And sometimes it's about trying to fit what you want to share with people into one of those available models, if you like, or available containers. So, for example, even though a course is laid out as you would expect, it's got the lesson, it's got like modules, and then lesson 1, lesson 2. You can almost take that and use it as like a library of video content, regardless of what that video content is about. And it's just about, I guess, changing the naming convention on some of these things to make it suit your business. But there is an element of, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, and then storage. I know you've done various different things about storage of video content as well, because to me, effectively, I would want the video content to be stored within the platform or without me having to have any overhead to store it and make it searchable. And the tags are a great idea, but I would still want the tag to, link to something within the platform, or without me having to go an additional step where I stored it in YouTube or Vimeo or any other platform, and then had to have a link and then put in the link and then put the tag against the link. And do you see where I'm coming from in terms of barriers to entry?
Yeah. No, and that's the case for every platform. That you need to consider that, because they all have their constraints. They all have, how much data do you want to store? How much data do you want to add to your community on an ongoing basis? And it needs to be stored somewhere. And typically the way they do it is they'll use like a third party, whether it's AWS or Bunny or whatever one of these platforms they use. But so, for example, if you get into, the community that we're part of, at the hub, if you get in there and you upload, let's say, an image or a document or a video or whatever, that will get stored on the cloud storage platform that I subscribe to, and is connected to the Fluent Community platform. Now, as members, you've no idea that it's hosted somewhere else because it's all built into the platform. But you just need to be mindful of that if you're going to do that, then you need to make a decision, usually cost-based decision, about where you want to store that. And just to complete that, the way I've chosen to do it is I store everything on a platform called bunny.net. I think that's I think that's the URL.net. It might be dot something else, but it's bunny anyway. BUNNY. And everything is stored there except the video content, which I choose to store on Vimeo because it's just where I've got all my video content I have had for years, and it just sits well with me. I know it works well, and that's what I chose to do with the video content.
Yeah, it is bunny.net. I was careful what I was typing in there because you never know what's going to pop up. But bunny.net is the platform. That's interesting. And I would be the same, I think. If I was doing a community, I would probably do all my video content as YouTube unlisted and then just put the links in there because that's, it's YouTube. You've got infinite amount of space. But Vimeo, obviously, you can do the same thing. But when other people are uploading, then you do need an element of space or some form of platform to do that because you never know what people can upload, right? And there's got to be some restrictions on that type of thing as well. Interesting. Well, we're actually past 6 o'clock already. Martin's given me the it's the time eyes as he's doing the eyebrows there, saying it's like at least you didn't do that. So anyway, John, before you disappear, where can people find you? It's provenflows.com, right? That's your site.
Provenflows.com, yeah, you'll get everything you need. If you want to contact me, you'll have all my contact details on there. So yeah.
Great. And I've put the link in the description and the chat for people who want to join your community as and when. And just I have one last question, because you've obviously gone through all this work now of setting up the community and you're building out this community, are you potentially going to be doing some courses, some tutorials on how to build a community on the platform that you've chosen?
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I've already mentioned to members inside the community is if you want to do exactly what I've done, you can get the exact blueprint inside the community because that's what I'll share inside. That's exactly how I've designed it, how I built it, using the advice of someone who's done it. So yeah, that'll be inside the community.
That's what I love about your community is because you are just so open at sharing everything that you are doing, whether it be your templates for Kit or whether it be your community platforms, anything that you're doing workflows wise, you're more than happy to just share that. And I think that's the whole point of community, right? Learning from each other and sort of, working through all these little problems together and learning from the best because everybody's got something to bring to the party. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Looking forward to continually supporting the community and joining you in your next workshops and workflows. So thank you so much, John, for joining us. Anything else from you, Martin, before we close up and go to our CTAs and things?
No, I would just say for anyone watching that there's a wide range of people in John's community as well. So all are welcome. So that's all.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, John, stay around in the green room. Thank you so much again for joining us for the third time. Third time's a charm. And you're welcome back anytime. And we'll obviously see you in the community over the next coming days. So stay with us and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Love that. And it's got me thinking about communities and platforms and things. But speaking of communities, we've got some stuff coming up very soon. So I'll just go hopefully to this one. We have got our next webinar coming up on the 12th of September, featuring Katie from Ecamm and Lux from Streamalive. And you can register for free. I put the link in the chat and you can click on the QR code and go to our site. Really looking forward to this one. It's all about building community. Obviously, Streamalive is a platform that allows you to have audience interaction. And of course, Ecamm, the platform we're using, has quite a large community on Facebook. And it's one of the nicest communities I've had the privilege of working with. Everybody's super helpful. So join us on that free webinar, 12th of September, 8 a.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. UK. So, Martin, anything from you? Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, we may be back next week. We've been chatting about a few different guests and we'll see what buttons we press. But yeah, another happy hour, so to speak, today, easily shot by talking Ecamm and Kit, and that's been great. And it's also going to be great to have Katie and Lux on the show, a bigger, more dramatic, longer show of an hour and a half, on the 16th of September. But we'll be back in this space again. We may also be doing a bit more vertical video as well, because I've been looking more at vertical video and some AI tools that you're helping me with the designs for stuff like that. So that's all interesting. We'll be talking more AI as well, just like everyone else.
Definitely, and from what I've seen, from what Martin's been doing, it's fantastic. And just to reiterate, it's the 12th of September, not the 16th, just in case people get mixed up there. So it's all right. You've got the 16th in your head about something there. I'm not sure, but don't worry. You don't worry. Anyway, 12th of September, come and join us. Until next week, we will be back maybe with a guest, or we might be talking AI stuff, but same time, same place. Thanks for joining. Val, thanks for being the best moderator in the world as ever. And Val, you must be coming on the show very soon. We're going to talk to you about getting you as a guest. So until then, we will see you soon. It's good night from me in sunny Portugal, and
good night from sunny Edinburgh.
See you
Cheerio.
soon.